Hi, good morning and good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are and what time of day you're watching this. But welcome to Season 5. This is a brand new information, 21st century advertising issues, and Episode 1, the one about the truth, which involves fake reviews, sponsorship, and other FTC issues. My name is Amanda DeFord, and I'm an associate in McGuire Woods Trademark and Copyright Litigation Group. And joining me today, who will introduce herself in a little while, is Lucy Jewett-Wheatley, a partner in the McGuire Woods Copyright and Trademark Litigation Group. So we're here today to talk about the FTC, and you might be thinking to yourself, why do I care about the FTC? Well, in case you didn't know, the FTC actually has a dual purpose. Its first purpose is the one most media attention covers and what garners most media attention, which is the blocking of mergers by companies in the effort to promote competition. FTC certainly does have a purpose for promoting fair competition among competitors, and part of that does involve blocking mergers to create free competition. But for our purposes today, we're here to talk about their second purpose. And the FTC's second purpose is to protect consumers against unfair, deceptive trade practices and fraudulent practices by businesses in various different industries. So what does that mean for you? Well, the FTC is tasked with enforcing a number of consumer protection laws that include the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, which basically covers what businesses are allowed to do when advertising, and has a bunch of different rules for advertising to children. You've got the Consumer Review Fairness Act, which, among other things, makes it or prohibits companies from taking actions that would stifle or limit consumers' abilities to provide fair and accurate or truthful reviews of their companies online and otherwise. You've got the Do Not Call Registry, you've got the Truth in Lending Act, and of course you've got the FTC Act, which the FTC is tasked with enforcing. In addition to those specific statutes, the FTC actually also promulgates and enforces a number of regulations and guidelines that are meant to enforce its general rules and general authority under the FTC, and promoting its dual purpose of promoting competition and protecting consumers against unfair, deceptive, fraudulent acts by businesses. You've got the mail and internet or telephone order merchandise rule, which involves what companies are allowed to do when advertising shipping, and what they're required to do in terms of making sure that consumers are aware of how long it's going to take to receive products, and if the shipments get delayed, what the company has to do to notify the consumer that the shipment is delayed, and the options they have to provide. You've got guidelines and rules about testimonials and endorsements, which is what we're going to focus on today, and so I won't give you too much of a preview on that one yet. You've got guidelines about the environmental claims that you can make about different products, guidelines about when products are considered free, if you're advertising something as free or as bundled with other goods, guidelines about made in the USA claims, and so forth. This is just a representative example. There are a bunch of other guidelines that the FTC has issued and rules that they enforce, but it's just a high-level overview for you of some of the more hot-button ones these days that implicate businesses as they operate in today's marketplace. So today, as I alluded to a moment ago, we're going to go ahead and focus on the FTC's focus on endorsements and testimonials, and all of that comes down to the truth. The FTC's main goal is to, as I mentioned before, in connection with consumer protection, is to make sure that consumers are not being deceived, whether that deception is intended or not. And the or not is actually an incredibly important part of that statement, because a lot of companies say, well, I didn't mean to do that, I should be okay. And the FTC says, no, it's incumbent on you to make sure that what you're doing is clear and not misleading, and that if it is, or if there's a reasonable inference that it's clear and misleading, that comes back on the company and not on the consumer. We're going to err on the side of protecting the consumer. So what we're going to talk about a little bit today is the FTC's main guidelines when it comes to truth in advertising. Centers around two kind of dual components, which is you have to have substantiation for your claims, and you have to have disclosures that are sufficient to keep consumers from being misled when they are reviewing your advertising. So with the FTC's focus shifting substantially, as I just mentioned a second ago, towards the digital marketplace, what that means for you and your company is that we have to pay more attention more than ever now to what that means as a company operating in the social media online platform world. And as Lucy will go into in specifics in a minute, today's presentation is going to focus on endorsement guidelines and testimonials and other activities where a company is inserting itself into the online platform in a way that has an influence over competitors, whether it be through social media where you're talking and injecting yourself into a conversation and getting people to talk about or promote your product directly, or through what would appear to be organic social media posts with them wearing your clothing or things like that, or if it's trying to increase the positive reviews that your company is receiving on online platforms to counteract some of the unfair perceptions that you might be seeing coming through with negative posts. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and transfer this over to Lucy, who is going to go into some specific enforcement cases that have happened within the last year and how those implicate the issues that your company should be focusing on when thinking about endorsements, informal or informal.
Hi, as you know, my name is Lucy Wheatley. I'm a partner in the Trademark and Copyright Litigation Group at McGuire Woods. I'm going to talk about some specific examples where the FTC has initiated enforcement actions against businesses, and also some typical scenarios that might occur in terms of promoting your products on the internet and social media. The FTC's jurisdiction really does extend to all types of endorsements. So that can be point of sale consumer reviews. So for example, a review on Amazon, social media posts by influencers, sponsored advertisements anywhere on the internet, product review and comparison web pages. So even something like a blog entry, if your company was involved in the creation of the review, and any other content that's aimed at influencing purchasing decisions. So we'll give a few examples in keeping with our Friends theme. As we all know from watching Friends, Rachel was a fashionista. So in this example, she has a new clothing line and she sends out free samples to top social media influencers, asking them to post pictures of the new outfits on Instagram. So we'll talk about what Rachel and her influencers need to do to stay on the right side of the FTC. Another possibility is Joey comes up with a new dating app, How You Doing? He offers an opportunity to win an all-inclusive 3-night stay in Las Vegas to subscribers who post pictures of their dates while tagging his company and using the hashtag #LoveAtFirstSight. We'll see what Joey needs to keep in mind for his sweepstakes promotion. Finally, despite having no pets of his own, but eager to support his friend, Chandler posts a review online of Phoebe's new smelly cat line of cat food. We'll talk about what issues Chandler might be facing for his fake review. All right, our first example, Rachel's new clothing line. The FTC Act requires a clear, prominent disclosure when a product or sample is provided for free and then reviewed or otherwise promoted by the individual that received it. An example of where a company has gotten in trouble for this is the Teamy case. In that case, Teamy made teas. They made cleansing teas. You could do a 30-day detox. It could help you with weight loss. It was supposed to also help cleanse your body. Teamy did a few things wrong. One, they made unsubstantiated efficacy claims, which means they were saying things like their teas could help prevent cancer. They were suggesting they could help you lose large amounts of weight, suggesting they had other health benefits. They also failed to disclose a material connection to well-known influencers. That means these influencers, people like Cardi B, Kylie Jenner, and others, were promoting Teamy on their social media feeds, but were not disclosing that they were in fact paid by Teamy. What ended up happening is Teamy had to agree to a judgment and a consent order, one requiring them to exercise better control over their paid influencers and making sure they were making the proper disclosures, and also a judgment of $15.2 million. Most of that 15.2 million was suspended, which means that TME only has to pay it if they later breach the consent judgment and violate the order. But still, it is a significant sword hanging over their head and not something any company wants to experience. In our example of Rachel, what she can do when she sends out these free samples of her fashion line to influencers is have a set of guidelines for her influencers that they have to click on a link to confirm that they have read them and that they know what they cannot and can and cannot say. Principally there, if they're getting free stuff, they have to disclose that they are getting free stuff from Rachel. That is very important. And Rachel, with her fashion business, needs to also take on the responsibility to some degree, monitor that their influencers are, in fact, abiding by these restrictions. And the requirement to monitor is going to be more serious, and you're going to have greater obligations if you are paying them versus simply giving them free stuff. But at the very least, you do need to provide your influencers with the rules that they need to follow to properly promote your product. Our next example, Joey's dating app contest. When you are hosting some sort of sweepstakes where the typical format would be you invite someone on social media to tag you or post a picture of themselves with their product and tag you. And if they do that, they receive a chance to win your sweepstakes. When folks do that, you have to make sure that they are disclosing that they have been incentivized to post, hashtag I love how you doing, or hashtag I met my spouse on how you doing. You've got to somehow make it clear that these people are not doing it spontaneously, but they are receiving something of value. So the way to do that is to include the word sweepstakes in your hashtag that you are asking them to post. So for example, you can have people post hashtag how you doing sweepstakes. So it lets people know that these people are involved in a contest, they are receiving an entry in that contest. The FTC has said that hashtag sweeps is not enough. That doesn't give people enough information to tell them that you are actually receiving something of value for doing this. So again, the easiest way to do that, just have them post a hashtag that makes the disclosure for you and includes your company name and the word sweepstakes. And you also want to make sure that people are disclosing these sweepstakes language prominently. Generally, on a social media post, a hashtag should be sufficient, but you don't want it buried somewhere. All right, next we've got Chandler's fake review. This is a growing problem because online reviews are tremendously influential in consumer purchasing decisions. Individuals even are not supposed to post fake reviews for their friends' companies. And in theory, an individual could get in trouble for that, though in practice, it's not going to be the individual, it's going to be the company for encouraging these types of fake reviews. The Sunday Riley enforcement proceeding by the FTC is pretty well known. In that case, the company was having its employees post fake reviews of its products. They received a consent judgment and an order prohibiting them from doing that anymore. The general rule of thumb is if your employees are going to post glowing reviews of your products, or they're going to post things on social media about how much they love your products, they need to disclose that they are an employee. The easiest way to make sure that happens is to have a social media set of social media guidelines for your employees that they are aware of and follow, and make it clear to them that they have to make that disclosure that they're an employee before they post any reviews. Or to some extent, you could simply have guidelines that your employees should not be posting about the company products at all, which is one way to avoid that problem and avoid any appearance of impropriety. Another example of the fake review phenomenon related to that is the Devumi case. In that case, Devumi's business model was to sell fake indicators of social media influence, basically allow you to get more followers or friends or likes or whatever the case may be that were not genuine. Devumi was action was brought by the FTC, and Devumi was restricted from doing that. Their order did include a monetary judgment. The amount was over 2.5 million. The individual behind Devumi ended up paying significantly less than that, but the 2.5 million is suspended. And if they ever engage in that sort of behavior again, they could have to pay the full amount. So it is something to take seriously. In terms of how you avoid getting the FTC's attention, one is that the FTC is going to primarily focus on issues that create significant consumer risk. So anytime you are making health claims, for example, skincare, weight loss, disease prevention, anything like that is much more likely to draw scrutiny. If your population that you are targeting is vulnerable, certainly there are special rules with respect to children, but also the elderly is something that the FTC is going to pay more attention to. If your products create financial risk for people, for instance, if you are recruiting people for MLM marketing, then you're going to get greater potential scrutiny from the FTC, and you really need to make sure your disclosures are accurate. So you always want to be aware in your industry if there have been enforcement actions against other companies that are your competitors, or how your industry is evolving. The FTC does have materials available for businesses that are written in plain language and can be very helpful for people in marketing departments to help guide them as to how to handle this. Here we've included a couple links. Their Business Center generally has a wealth of materials. And I will say that their FTC endorsement guides, what people are asking link, has it in a frequently asked question format that provides a lot of specific examples of social media marketing and different levels, whether you are a distributor, whether you provide some sort of advertising service, and allows you to figure out what you are responsible for and what you have to do to comply with the FTC Act and avoid deceiving consumers. So highly recommend anyone checking both of those out. You do not have to be a lawyer to look at that information. So that finishes up our presentation, season 5, episode 1, the one about the truth. Thank you to everyone for attending, and please feel free in the future to contact Amanda or myself if you have any questions.